Right, so I'd like to welcome everybody to the Nutri-Centre near Richmond Park in London and give a big thanks to Regent's Park in London, and say thank you to them for asking us to give our presentation on menopause. So tonight we're looking at menopause. Some of the references I've put in, but I need to finish a few, so I'll put those in on the website. So we're looking at menopause and the scientific data. I'm Dian Shepperson Mills. I run the Endometriosis and Fertility Clinic, which is in the Hale Clinic here. I am a nutritional therapy consultant, so I look at nutrition mainly, and I'm available on dian@endometriosis.co.uk if anybody wishes to ask anything, and endometriosis.co.uk and makingbabies.com. Now, how did I get here? Well, I taught nutrition for 20 years. I trained at Manchester University, and then I retrained at ION for 3 years, and then I looked at endometriosis and nutrition as part of my dissertation there. And then I retrained at the University of Brighton, and I did an MA in health education looking at fertility and nutrition. And I work with endometriosis, polycystic ovaries, preconceptual care, but also I work with many women who are going into early menopause, due to surgery or due to treatments they've had. So we'll carry on. So menopausal symptoms, we've got a whole range of things. Irregular bleeding, which is perimenopause, just before your periods stop, they go a bit put, and they start being shorter or longer or heavier or lighter. So you can get this irregular bleeding. Hot flushes, atrophic vaginitis, bladder infections, mood changes, cognitive changes, body aches where you just ache all over, sleep disturbances and weight gain. And other common symptoms which women mention are fatigue, feeling very worn out, sexual dysfunction because of the dry vagina, hair can be thinning, facial hair can start growing, headaches, dry skin, joint pains and urinary incontinence or cystitis. So I'm going to work through those one by one and explain what's happening and how we can counteract them. So menopause happens between the age of 48 and 52 on average. But some people go into early menopause. My grandmother went into menopause at the age of 33, and she lived to 101, living in her own bungalow, cooking a 3-course lunch every day. So you don't always have to have osteoporosis. You can get premature ovarian failure. Some girls in their teens, early 20s, it may be because the ovaries haven't formed properly. We don't really know why. It may be epigenetic changes, something that was done before the baby was conceived or while it was in the womb. Surgical menopause after the uterus and or ovaries are removed during operations. Obviously there's a loss of estrogen because the ovaries change the way in which they work. And natural menopause happens on average over 7 years. So your body starts winding down and changing gradually. It doesn't happen as does surgical menopause, which happens overnight and is a shock to the body. So those are the average is around here. But some people, one of my grandmothers had menopause at 58, the other one was 33, my mother was 40, I was 54, so it varies. And sometimes they say it's similar to your mother, but certainly not with my mother, my grandmother and myself. So it must vary quite greatly, and it may depend on your health as a child and diet you're eating and obviously your digestion. So I shall be going through all of that. So the definition, if you look in medical textbooks, the definition is the cessation of menstruation around 51. And they accept that if a woman hasn't had a period for 12 months, then that's when you say menopause. Because some people put as they do when they start their periods in puberty, where they have a period, another period, nothing for 6 months, so it can jump a little. And the time prior to menopause is called perimenopause. So it's the time building up to when you go into menopause. And the time after is postmenopausal, after menopause. And perimenopausal women who ovulate irregularly therefore have changes in the menstrual cycle, but then some women don't have any symptoms and they just stop. And to me, menopause is not an illness. It should not be an illness. It should just be a gliding from one state of being into another. And you shouldn't get all of these really nasty symptoms if the body's working properly. So we need to work through and see how we can alleviate the symptoms and help stop some of these problems which are occurring, which ruin your quality of life. And the very interesting thing, and this comes up twice, is that life expectancy, as you prolong life expectancy, it increased postmenopausal periods are significant in a woman's life. So the average woman after menopause can expect to live another third of her life. At least. I mean, my grandma lived 2/3 of her life after menopause. So, you know, your life expectancy, the later your menopause is, it would appear that you may live longer, is what some of the research I've been reading is saying. So risk factors, well obviously diet, I'm a nutritionist, has to be important because you are what you eat. In fact, you are what you eat and what you can digest and what you can absorb. So if you are not eating well, you're not going to absorb nutrients. If you're eating very well, but your digestion is compromised, you may not be absorbing the nutrients correctly. So we need to work through the whole of it. Psychological needs, because this is a big change, you know, it's a time when most women who've got children, their children are going off to university, so your whole reason to be is sort of flipping around. Smoking can upset because smoking puts down estrogen, so it can affect menopause. If you become dehydrated, so I have to keep drinking my water if you forgive me. Excess refined sugars, starches and caffeine, they can also have an impact, as I'll explain later. Obviously alcohol if you have too much, because alcohol actually, if you have too much, is estrogenic. Your body metabolizes it into fat cells which put out estrogen. Low exercise, so people should keep exercising. And obviously excess stress, because that puts up your adrenaline and cortisol, and that can have an effect on all the other hormones in the body. So the hormone imbalances that we may experience around menopause could be triggered. Because I think menopause should not be an illness. We should just get through it normally. But if you've got environmental causes, you know, lots of pesticides or phthalates in foods, the endocrine system can be disrupted because of the estrogen changes. Stress hormones, as I said, can upset. Too many trans fats can be a problem because if you think about it, your estrogen and your progesterone are oil-based hormones. So if you're eating good cis fatty acids, that will help your hormones to be more normal. But if you're eating a lot of trans fatty acids, which behave differently in the body, that may have an impact on the way your hormones behave. In nature, cis fatty acids are like a big horseshoe, and they lock together in cell membranes and in hormones to to make them strong. But when they've been hydrogenated oils, the trans fats, they're just a little humpback bridge of a bend, and they don't lock so well together, so they make the cell membranes weaker. So obviously you need to be having good quality oils. Pituitary adenoma, the pituitary, which I'll come on to later, is the size of a green pea hanging behind your nose in the middle of your brain. And that's the master gland of the endocrine orchestra that tells all the other organs what to do. And sometimes people can develop an adenoma, which is like a little tiny bleb on it, and that can change hormone levels as well. So that may be the reason some people have problems. Food toxicants, the chemicals that are in foods, which we don't know, they're tested one by one, but if you put 5 of them together in a meal, what happens then? It's a chemistry experiment we don't know the end of. And clinical assessment tools, when the doctor does tests or the nutritionist does tests to see what's actually happening. So the current conventional medical treatment is 1 to 5 years HRT, hormone replacement therapy, or what they call estrogen replacement therapy in some places. Mostly it's a combination of estrogen and progesterone, or progestogen, because progesterone is the hormone that your body makes from the corpus luteum in the ovary, which is a natural hormone, but the synthetic hormone, progestogen, it's called. And in 2015, in America, they're saying that 50% of the women in America will be menopausal by 2015. And that from 1990 to 2020, the menopausal population in America will double. So, we've got this aging population where menopause will have a greater impact. And what we're looking at is the way we can manage menopause to stop people having all these problems. So dietary factors, exercise, clearly stress management, because we're all in a recession, we're all stressed, all around the world I think really. Looking at nutrition and supplements, botanicals, the herbs, natural hormones, conventional hormones, and additional pharmaceuticals, because what we want to look at is actually integrated medicine, functional medicine, looking at how the individual's body is functioning and corrected, because we're all unique. So estrogen replacement therapy, there's a link, we know there's a link between estrogen and endometrial cancer. That's why the early HRT was estrogen replacement therapy, and they found that some women developed cancer of the uterus, which is why they started putting progesterone into it. In 2000, 46 million prescriptions for conjugated estrogen preparations, Premarin, were written in the USA, and there are 22.3 million prescriptions for medroxyprogesterone, the Prem-Po. But only 1 in 3 women given a prescription for HRT go to the compounding pharmacist and have it made up. So it's being suggested and given to some women, but they're not taking it. So normal hormone levels, estrogen should be around 30 to 150. In menopause it's 40 to 200. Progesterone mid-luteal phase is greater than 10 nanograms. Testosterone 35 to 50. And of course in menopause, the ovary starts producing a bit more testosterone as it stops producing estrogen and progesterone, so its use changes. And FSH, which in normal women who are fertile is 5 to 20, more around 5 to 10. Over 20, then it's 5 years to menopause. And 40 to 200, you're in menopause, you're starting. I always think from 70. I've had people where their FSH has been 70 and we've got it back down again. But once it's 70, 100, 200, you're on your way into menopause. And LH 7 to 14. So we've gone through these really. Quality of life can be affected. If you have terrible symptoms, it can have a terrible effect on your daily life. Some people become befuddled. It's just, your body biochemistry is changing and we need to counteract it. The menstrual irregularity, the hot flushes, headaches, temperature. People get these hot flushes which are head and shoulders. They feel as though they're boiling over. Dizziness, shaky palpitations, extremes of tiredness and fatigue. Digestive tract involvement with bloating. And again, if that's happening, that has to be, to me, the first thing that we start to correct, because nothing else can come right unless you're digesting the nutrients that we need to get you through menopause. Bladder infections, painful intercourse because the vagina becomes drier, the mood changes, stress in relationships, osteoporosis and heart disease and strokes. So I'm going to work through each one. And you feel a bit fragile and frail, but really you want to be rushing down the beach and swimming and feeling full of beans. So the first thing we're looking at is cognition, the learning, concentration, memory and planning. And estrogen, progesterone and testosterone all modulate brain function via your neurotransmitter systems. And acetylcholine works in the limbus system and needs B5 and it helps with memory. Serotonin is the feel-good factor and the cofactor is B6. And noradrenaline, again, needs B5 and dopamine, which helps. So serotonin and dopamine are mood and acetylcholine helps with memory. And the effects of estrogen on acetylcholine has the potential to affect memory and learning. So we always think that these hormones are really working in the reproductive system, but they do have a function in the brain. So when they're falling, the levels are falling, it's going to affect the brain. And concentration and memory can be impaired if you're not sleeping properly. If you wake up in the night and you're drenched in sweat, you're not going to sleep properly and feel rested the next day, and it all impacts one on another, so that you don't cope with life as well if you're not sleeping properly. There's a relationship between endogenous estrogen exposure and cognition. This is research in brain cognition. And reports have demonstrated that HRT use may prevent or delay the progression of the onset of Alzheimer's disease. And as I said earlier, vitamin B5 is the precursor to acetylcholine production. So you need to be eating foods and absorbing the B5 in order for your acetylcholine to help with memory. Menstrual irregularity. It seems to reduce the length of the period in some women. So instead of having a 28-day cycle, it starts going to 27, 26, 21. Some women I see are bleeding every 3 weeks, which of course then is going to deplete your iron level, isn't it? So it's like one domino on top of another. And I always find a lot of the doctors, if they are on the ball, will ask and check for anemia, which they do often in younger reproductive women, but they don't always think of it in older women. So you could ask for your GP to do an iron level check, and a thyroid check would help as well, because that can affect menstrual cycle. So the herb Vitex agnus castus aids pituitary function. So it makes the pituitary pulse FSH and LH to the ovaries. So it seems to keep the cycle going. And it's even written on Egyptian papyrus about Vitex agnus castus. It's been used for so long to normalise the menstrual cycle. And I find fish oils quite helpful because obviously if your progesterone and estrogen are based on cis fatty acids, and the good cis fatty acids, the use of fish oils and eating oily fish like wild salmon, trout, mackerel, sardines, pilchards, Pacific halibut and anchovies, then if you're having a good amount of those, the oils should help. Your olive oil as a salad dressing with some lemon juice and some cumin and coriander or some mustard seeds. You know, have a good mixture of things, or chop some parsley or coriander into it and make a nice salad dressing. And then your handful of nuts and seeds every day, that will give you some good oils that should help your hormones to work. Hot flushes. This peripheral vasodilation, which leads to a rise in skin temperature and the flushing. The skin of the head and the neck goes red and warm for up to 2 minutes, and then people can feel cold chills. And a lot of women have it constantly. Some of the people I see, it's just always happening. And they're carrying little fans round to cool themselves down because they get so enormously hot. And it may coincide with symptoms like a beating, like a palpitation, or headaches. You feel sort of, you know, your pituitary is changing and it's in the middle of your head. So that's the headache. Or you might be dehydrated if you're not drinking enough. Slightly dizzy. Weight gain, which I loved in Germaine Greer's book. She questioned weight gain. Because obviously if you put on some weight and you've got extra fat cells, they're making estrogen. And Germaine Greer questioned whether that was a logical thing for the body to do to improve the estrogen level. Fatigue, because some people get enormously tired, and in the insomnia, which if you've got insomnia, you're going to have fatigue. So in America, the research shows that 65 to 80% of menopausal women have hot flushes. And we said that there are an awful lot of women, and it's going to get worse by 2015. Clinical studies have found that vitamin E is effective in relieving hot flushes in menopausal vaginal complaints. And this is research in the American Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology, the British Medical Journal, and the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism. So well-known journals are suggesting the use of vitamin E. Dizziness, shaky, palpitations. Obviously for some people it might be a blood sugar imbalance. If you're eating too many carbohydrates and your pancreas is strained, low blood sugar can trigger symptoms of dizziness, shakiness and palpitations. And we've got research in metabolism showing that chromium supplements in trials improve glucose tolerance. So avoiding an excess of sugary foods, having more fresh fruits, and using, if you need to sweeten, you're probably better using little bits of honey than refined cane sugars. And you could always make your own flapjacks. You could use some butter or olive oil, stir it up with a drizzle of honey, put in a pinch of ginger, put in your oats, so you've got that, a third of the sugar you would normally have, and then put in some blueberries or dried apricots and some flaked almonds, and make yourself, or some seeds. So you've got a bar that is giving you nutrients and good oils and you know, normal natural sugars, not refined sugars. So that you've got something to munch through the week that you've made and you know exactly what's in it. So weight gain issues, 35% of American women 20 or over are classed as overweight if you use the body mass index. The cutoff was 27.3. Obesity is 30. And they say a normal BMI body weight should be between 22, 25, 26. You know, so 22 to 25 is optimum, and under 18 would be classed as anorexia. So we know, because of all the corn sugar syrups and all the trans fats that the people are eating, that this adiposity, the weight gain, compounds the effects of hypertension. The more weight your body's carrying, the more strain there is on the heart, because the more fatter you are, then clearly you've got more capillaries and arteries and veins, so the heart's got to pump harder to get it that further distance. So trying to lose weight gently, 1 or 2 pounds a week, by walking or sticking a record on and having a jig, will cut down cardiovascular risk factors. And this is research in the American Journal of Public Health. Underweight, because I always come in here and all these books everywhere, and most of the books are on how to lose weight. There is only one book on how to gain weight. And you get all these people who they have hollow legs. It doesn't matter what they eat, they do not put weight on.
What's this book?
I can't remember, I've got it at home, they'll know at the counter. But the other people are desperate to lose weight, and they're doing everything. Some of them are living on lettuce leaves, and running and jogging and cycling, and they don't lose a pound. And there is some research which is about healthy gut flora, which helps your body weight to normalise. So underweight as well, we've got these skinny ribbed people with involuntary weight loss. They're not trying to lose weight, it's just falling off them, and they're eating but they can't put it on. And that also, like being overweight, is this morbidity and mortality. This is in the Journal of Gerontology and the Journal of American Dietetics Association and the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. So what we need is the Goldilocks zone. We need to try and be in this BMI of 22 to 26. It's the Goldilocks zone. So trying to do some exercise, which I'll come on to later. Extreme fatigue, insomnia, tied together, because if you're not sleeping, your energy is going to go. So we know that iron, iodine, magnesium, B vitamins and vitamin C are involved in energy production in the body. So we have to be absorbing these nutrients to help the body cells create energy in the mitochondria. So the more varied your diet, the more nutrients you can take in. When you're in Japan they tell people to have 100 different foods a day. And they probably do, because they have little bowls of different things. Whereas the average 15-year-old is having chips, crisps, Coke, beef burgers, pizza, pasta, chocolate. So we've got to try and go back to our hunter-gatherer times and try and eat as many different foods in a day as we can. A rainbow meal, so you've got red, green, blue, black, purple, white, lots of different colours on your plate. And as I said, a good digestion improves absorption. A trial in the Journal of Nutritional Medicine on magnesium malate showed that it aided chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia pain. So magnesium and malic acid both work in the Krebs cycle in the mitochondria to produce energy. So it's not just iron, and it's not just iodine, and it's not just vitamin B12 which help with energy. Some of the other Bs and magnesium are very important, and research is showing that women are quite low in magnesium. They used 300 milligrams of magnesium in the trial. It was also seen to improve sleep patterns because it relaxes you and helps you have a more deep, restful sleep. Chamomile tea and lime blossom tea also help. Chamomile helps sleep. Lime blossom calms the nervous system. So a cup of chamomile or lime blossom tea before you go to bed, and sitting reading a book rather than playing a video game to help you relax more would help. And your GP can test your red cell magnesium levels to see if you're normal or below normal. Vitamin B6, the controversial vitamin. There appears to be a biochemical deficiency of... Oh, I've got something twice, haven't I? There appears to be a biochemical deficiency of vitamin B6 deficiency. I think I've put it twice. In 10 to 20% of older women. What it's trying to say is 10 to 20% of older women are low in vitamin B6. So this is the nutrition in the elderly, the Boston Nutrition Survey, and also this was the NHANES 2 survey in the American Journal of Nutrition. So when they looked at older women, they haven't got normal B6 levels. And the amount of B6 necessary to restore immune function in older women was 20 to 45 times higher than the current RDA. And also the research in the Nutrition Today said that carpal tunnel syndrome studies, which is where you get painful wrists and fingers, show there's an increased need for vitamin B6, which is age-related. So taking a good B complex and eating vitamin B6 rich foods would be helpful. So digestion, bloating, excess gas, diarrhea or constipation would say that you're not having a normal stool every day, which you should be having if your digestion is working. So in order to digest the food and get the nutrients from the food into you, you've got to have correct digestion. So if anything is going wrong, you could try an acidophilus probiotic every day. And if you have painful bowel movements, you could use magnesium because that relaxes the smooth muscle, which is what the bowel is made from, and slippery elm, which heals the gut membrane. It's a very old remedy. It's the inside bark of an elm tree, and it's the part of the bark that takes the nutrients from the roots up to the leaves. So when they grind it, it's very nutrient rich, and it forms a gel-like coating through the gut and helps the gut membrane to heal. But if you've got a major problem with the gut, then you need to see your GP. You know, if there's a change in bowel habits to watery diarrhea or black constipated stools, or there's blood on your stools, then you should go and see your GP. Bladder infections. So 15% of menopausal women have frequent bladder infections. This is because estrogen protects the skin, and as your estrogen is going down, there are changes in the urethra and bladder. So there's a breakdown in the natural defense mechanisms that protect us against bacterial growth in the urinary tract. The natural approach is to enhance normal host protective measures against urinary tract infections. So you need to enhance the flow. You need to have plenty of water. I'll have a drink now. So keep drinking water. I always remember Stephen Davis and Alan Stewart in one lecture many years ago saying that every elderly person should have a glass of water every hour to keep them hydrated. And I find lots of elderly people I know, and even some of our friends, who don't have a drink after 7 at night. Now that's a wonderful way to dehydrate your whole body, you know, because they don't want to get up and go to the toilet in the night. But clearly having water is crucial. Every body's cell, there's over 70% water, so trying to keep hydrated helps the bladder and kidneys, promoting a pH that stops the growth of any organisms, and using vaginal estrogen sometimes, or you can use vitamin E oil to help avoid the bacteria sticking, because there's research on cranberry to show that it does this. It helps to stop these bacterial infections. I haven't had time to find the references, but I'll put them up on the website. There's cranberry, Urvatussi and golden seal, which is suggested, and I've actually got the paper in my bag, but I haven't had time to finish typing that up. But I'll put them on my website.
Can you book it?
Sorry, go back again. Cranberry, Urvatussi and golden seal. So I've got the references, and over the weekend I'll type them in, and then they'll be up next week. Now, atrophic vaginitis, the painful intercourse. There was a follow-up study, this is British Medical Journal, published in 1949, for heaven's sakes, that demonstrated that vitamin E at 400 IUs a day was effective in 50% of postmenopausal women with a dry vagina. And there's also suggestions from the Journal of Clinical Endocrinological Metabolism that vitamin E oil or creams or ointments or suppositories could be used topically on the skin to provide symptomatic relief of a dry vagina. So again, vitamin E comes into its own. Now, osteoporosis. I haven't put all the research in here because I'm doing another talk later on that. But the use of estrogen reduces the risk of vertebral fracture by approximately 50% and the risk of hip fracture by 25 to 30%. This is in the British Medical Journal. So estrogen helps to keep bones strong. Now, my grandma went into menopause at 33 and never broke a bone and died when she was 101, so I always think some people are different. The US Food and Drug Administration removed estrogen from the list of agents approved for treating women who already have osteoporosis. But there are drugs for treating osteoporosis, the bisphosphonates, thank you. And there are also some other drugs. There's a powder, I've forgotten the name of it, which you put in water and have it every evening. This one is the one you have to take once a week and walk around for half an hour so it doesn't upset your digestion. But involved prospective fracture reduction studies on women with low bone mass and or fracture are still ongoing, so they're still looking at ways of helping, and there is some research on boron, because boron is estrogenic, and there's some research which suggests that small amounts of boron in the diet and as a supplement may help because it puts estrogen into bones. HRT and osteoporosis. WHI was a large clinical trial in which there were 16,608 postmenopausal women from the age of 50 to 79, and they were studied at 40 centres in America. This is the Women's Health Initiative, randomised controlled trial in JAMA. They were given continuous combined estrogen-progesterone therapy, PREMPO, and the women experienced lower rates of hip fracture, 10 per 10,000 person years versus 15 per 10,000 person years in the placebo group. So there was a 34% lower risk of having a fracture if you were taking PREMPO. And also the vertebral fractures in the spine was also a 34% lower risk. So statistically significant fracture reductions were also seen in other osteoporotic fractures, 23%. And in total 24%. The first time I came across osteoporosis was when I was 15 years old, and we moved. And the man in the house next to us would put up a deck chair in the garden and his arm would break. And it wasn't known then a lot about men getting it, but men also get osteoporosis. So, it was horrendous because he'd just go and do something normal and his arm would break. So it is a terrible, terrible disease. So the sooner we make sure people are eating the nutrients earlier on and getting the calcium into their bones and finding out why it's worse now than it was years ago. Bone strength. Now, this was in Robert Erdman's book, Minerals, the Metabolic Miracle Workers. For bone strength, it's not just calcium that you need in bone. Bone is living. It's working all the time. Minerals are going in and out of it. You've got calcium, and calcium won't be absorbed unless magnesium is present properly and they're balanced. Phosphorus, vitamin K, which is produced if you've got healthy gut flora, or if you eat parsley. And boron, as I said earlier, manganese is involved, folic acid, strontium, silicon, zinc, copper, ascorbic acid, vitamin C, vitamin B6, and we've just heard that that's low in a lot of elderly women, sodium and protein. So all these nutrients influence the final deposition of calcium into bone. So that tells you that a balanced diet is needed because you need, and a good digestion, because we need all those nutrients going into your body from your digestion to help your bones to be strong, not just calcium. And building bone, dairy foods, though rich in calcium, are poor in magnesium, which is needed to aid calcium use. Green leafy vegetables, nuts and seeds are rich in magnesium and improve alkaline levels in the body, whereas excess protein creates too much acid. So again, it's the Goldilocks principle, 30 to 40 milligrams of protein a day. You don't need much, but you need some. So your varied diet and being adventurous on a Saturday and Sunday, if you've got a bit of extra time, you can look in a recipe book and make something new. Because we all end up stuck in a rut and eating the same food all the time because you haven't time to look at something else and do you like it anyway. But the more you experiment at free time at the weekends, then the bigger your repertoire and the more foods you're going to eat. You might like dragon fruit or salsify, who knows? So exercise and bone. Clearly diet's not just all of it. You have to exercise as well. Oh, I put a brisk. That was obviously a 2 o'clock in the morning typing error. A brisk 20-minute walk every day helps to put calcium into your bones and other nutrients too. Obviously that's good, but you need to be in fresh air and daylight. Being in a building with fluorescent lights all day working, and then you go to work in the dark, you're coming home in the dark in winter, where's your vitamin D? Vitamin D3 is also needed to help your bones. So we need some daylight, we need to go and do a bit of sun worshipping and get some vitamin D produced under our skin. But you don't have to do a walk outside if it's winter. You can put a dance song on and have a jig, a bit of brown sugar or something. And join a yoga class, or perhaps a rambling group, and go off over the hills for a couple of hours on a Saturday or a Wednesday or whenever. So health. This is from a study of an Australian population, the Journal of Epidemiology and Community Health. Health is increasing concern for older women, and I'd say for older men as well. But many women who are interested in nutrition, particularly in diet, as it relates to prevention and treatment of chronic disease. I mean, to me, nutrition is the ultimate primary health care and preventive medicine. So concerns about diet are frequently reflected in dietary modification to reduce disease risk. This is in the Journal of Nutrition and the Journal of Nutrition there. So the 1990 Institute of Medicine, their report on health promotion and disability prevention in the second 50 years. I mean, Denmark was doing this in the 90s. Denmark, Norway and Sweden in the Health for All 2000 initiative said we do not want an elderly population which is sick. We want an elderly population that is healthy. So they put out guidelines. I mean, Finland had terrible heart disease statistics. And they put out all these healthy guidelines for people to follow. And they've improved the health of their elderly people. In England, Sheffield stands out. It won't much longer. But at the moment, Sheffield stands out as a shining light for the elderly because they can go and play golf. They can go and swim, they can go and do yoga classes for free. They can go on the bus and it's free. So in Sheffield there are amazing health statistics because the elderly people can go off and do things. But that's now being cut back, so we're going to sort of implode a little. So recommendations were made for research on nutrient requirements and for the development of reliable and valid screening services to predict nutritional risk. So what we'd all love to do is have a pot of money and take people off the street and test everybody for vitamin and mineral deficiencies in different age groups. It would be enlightening. The problem is that maintenance for a well person is different to recovering health for a sick person. All the RDAs are based on people who are not really sick. They're based on people who are well and just need maintenance. Whereas if you've got somebody who's really ill with compromised digestion, it's a totally different kettle of fish. They may need more vitamin C, B6, magnesium. Their levels may be much lower. The National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, there was a NHANES 3. So this is reported, I don't know where I am here, the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey in AMA and the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. So data suggests that the requirements for energy and vitamin A may decrease with age, but requirements for thiamine, riboflavin, niacin and folic acid seem to be unchanged with age. This was 1960 to 1991 and 1993. I would hazard a guess that if they do this again, it will have changed, because in those times people were still eating normal dinners and meals with fruit and veg. They weren't living on pizza and pasta. The requirements for protein, vitamin B6, vitamin B12, calcium and vitamin D appear to be higher in older adults. So doctors should be looking for low levels of these. You can get a vitamin B6 anemia, deficiency anemia. We know about I've lost it. Pernicious anemia with B12, where before the First World War they had to eat a pound of raw liver a day to get their B12. And for zinc, E and copper, they said they didn't have enough evidence. Now whether they're doing this again, I don't know, but it would be a good time to do it again because diets have changed so drastically. Protein, now meat, fish, eggs, nuts, seeds, legumes, peas, beans, lentils, dairy foods. See, protein needs for the elderly. As you get old and you've got your false teeth and you can't chew and you've not got the energy to make a 3-course meal, you don't cook as well often. Although I do remember when my grandma was 97 and they assessed her and the doctor said to her, "And what do you eat, dear?" expecting she'd say a jam sandwich. And she said, "Well, I'll have grapefruit for breakfast and cereal, and then at lunchtime I have some soup, and I make a lamb casserole with shallot. We used to call her the Lady of Shallot, and she'd have her carrots and her cabbage and potatoes, and then she might have an egg custard or a rice pudding, because it all went in the oven and cooked together. And the doctor turned to her and said, I think I better come and eat with you. So that's what we need people to be like. So you've got to keep old people active. I mean, the people we've had in our family in the hundreds and 90s are amazing. So safe recommended protein intakes for adults is 1 to 1.25 grams per kilogram per day. So it's 12 to 14% of your calorie intake, and this is in the nutritional review. And obviously it's harder, especially if your husband or your wife's died and you've got to go shopping in a supermarket and you want enough for one. I mean, it must be awful if you're having lamb Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You know, you want to change. We need variety. But because packs of food are so big, there are some supermarkets that do allow people to pick things, but you need variety. So it's crucial. And then, of course, there can be emotional pain. You've got a loss of lifestyle. Your children have gone off to university, you're rattling around the house, loss of energy if you're having bad menopause, your fertility's gone, and sometimes loss of confidence. So it can be quite a big change for some women. The main thing is this is the endocrine system. It's the pineal gland that produces melatonin that helps sleep, the hypothalamus, GnRH, pituitary, FSH, LH, oxytocin, prolactin, the thyroid with thyroxine, the thymus with the thymus hormones, the pancreas, which is by the liver producing insulin and glucose tolerance factor, the adrenals on top of the kidney producing, I can't see, adrenaline, no, that's adrenaline, estrogen, and I can't read that one. The uterus, prostaglandins. The uterus produces a hormone called prostacyclin, which protects you from heart disease. And the ovaries producing estrogen and progesterone. And the pituitary is the conductor, if you like, of the endocrine orchestra. So it's telling all the other glands what to do. And in menopause, it's the ovary that's changing the way it functions. And instead of you stop having normal periods, you don't get the breast tenderness, your breasts are supposed to shrink, but they don't always. And of course the hormone profile changes because the hormones level off. So the ovary, when you're a fetus, you have 7 million eggs in the ovary. By the time you're born, there's 400,000. Up to there and puberty, menarche. And the first reproductive years, these tiny, tightly packed eggs are being released in case you're trying to get pregnant. But after menopause, the ovaries change. The outer layer doesn't work, but the middle core bit is producing the testosterone still. And all of this changes as the ovary is changing as well. Now there is a new piece of research out in the Lancet in 2010 by DeVos, Primary Ovarian Insufficiency, which is about absent ovarian function of estrogen and progesterone, that postmenopausal ovary continues to produce androgens. It doesn't stop working, it just changes its mode of action. And the gonad steroids are important for healthy function of the reproductive tract, maintenance of bone mass, cardiovascular system, cognition, well-being and sexuality. And during the reproductive years, the effects of persistent state of severe steroid depletion should be seriously considered. Now I work with women with endometriosis, and part of the treatment is to put you into a pseudo-menopause by using various GnRH agonists which switch off the pituitary and put you into menopause, so the endometriosis will dry out. but you should only do it for 6 months or another 6 months with an HRT add back, because there can be problems. So hysterectomy, a partial hysterectomy with just the uterus removed, or a complete hysterectomy where the uterus and both ovaries are removed. But of course the paper advises, and most gynecologists now advise, that conservative surgery is the best option. It should be the last resort to hysterectomy if cancer is found. And estrogens are important in the process of bone modelling. So estrogen deficiency results in an imbalance between the osteoclast and the osteoblast activity, the putting in of calcium and taking out of calcium cells, and a progressive loss of trabecular bone. And this is American Journal of Nutritional Medicine, World Review of Nutritional Diet, and Journal of American Dietetic Association. So decreased bone density can be noted within 6 months of starting severe ovarian suppression. Some of the drugs you can lose 20% of the calcium from your bone. So GnRH agonists can be given like in endometriosis. An increased bone fragility leads to a 50% lifetime risk of fracture or a 15% risk of hip fracture, which can be a major cause of disability and death. So it's very important to get your bones strong if you've been on a GnRH agonist. I think I did cognitive function earlier, didn't I? That's wrong. After oophorectomy, they've done in this paper, if you have a hysterectomy and ovaries out, and I'll put all these references in over the weekend, there's increased risk of minor cognitive impairment or dementia, and depression and anxiety symptoms and Parkinson's, and increased mortality from neurological and mental diseases had been noted in a cohort of 2,000 women who'd had unilateral or bilateral oophorectomy. So it's quite serious if you have a hysterectomy and ovaries out. It can impact on you later on, which is why we're saying conservative surgery is best. So cardiovascular disease, studies show associate cardiovascular disease and mortality with the age of menopause within the healthy age range, premature menopause or following oophorectomy. The risk of cardiovascular mortality was significantly higher in women with natural early menopause compared with late menopause in a cohort of 12,000 menopausal women. So if you go into early menopause, you're at greater risk of cardiovascular disease later on, which my grandma didn't have. Meta-analysis, 132, showed that's the research paper, showed association between postmenopausal hormone status and cardiovascular disease. It was more pronounced for women with artificial menopause after a bilateral oophorectomy. That's the uterus and both ovaries being removed. So the research that I'll put in, natural menopause showed a long overall survival occurred in women with a late menopause. So the later you have your menopause, it would appear the better. Have I done this one? No. Increased cardiovascular mortality was noted after bilateral oophorectomy before 45 years of age. So trying to hang on to your organs would seem to be an important thing. This is because they think the prostacyclin, the hormone. With increased overall mortality in women who did not have estrogen therapy until they were aged 45 years or more. And a 24-year follow-up of 138, sorry, that's the research paper, follow-up of 16,000 women who had a hysterectomy with or without bilateral oophorectomy. This was from a cohort of 30,000 in the Nurses' Health Study. They had an age-adjusted hazard ratio of 1.12 for total mortality, 1.17 for coronary heart disease, 1.26 for lung cancer, which amazed me, and 1.14 for stroke. So if you've had your womb and ovaries removed, you've got a slightly greater risk of having these problems. Hypertension in menopause. A blood pressure of 120/80 is regarded as the norm, but anything over 140/90 needs checking out, and you should see your GP. This is, I don't know whether I've put this, I have. This is Pisano and Murray, hypertension, natural medicine instruction for patients. So they're suggesting you increase your plant foods, especially onions, garlic, celery, broccoli and asparagus, and avoid sugars and trans fats where possible. Use a multivitamin, mineral and an omega-3 fish oil, and the diet should be high in magnesium foods, vitamin C, vitamin E, CoQ10, B6 and calcium. And they also suggest that you concentrate on breathing deeply, so you're using the diaphragm, so you're taking in more oxygen to pick up more iron, to give you more energy. So little shallow breathing is no good. So, a brisk walk would be helpful. So heart support. High blood pressure raises the risk of cardiovascular disease 3 times greater in women if you've got high blood pressure. And high cholesterol needs reducing. You can use cis fats like olive oil, eat apples for pectin. There's some research I think I've put later on chromium. Thiamine, which is vitamin B1, increases the amount of blood the heart can pump with each contraction. And carnitine improves heart function. And coenzyme 10 improves heart function. And magnesium relaxes muscles. So you're, trying to keep eating green leafy veg is crucial. The orthodox treatments could be painkillers, HRT, antidepressants, or removal of organs. And, as we've said, conservative surgery is preferred. Steroid replacement. There was resulted in increased carotid pulsatility index, decreased blood pressure, this is HRT, improved renal function and lowered activation of renin-angiotensin system. Although direct evidence of the beneficial effects of estrogen replacement therapy is indicated, despite the hazards of the therapy after chemotherapy in young women who've experienced thrombosis events such as pulmonary embolism or DVT, deep vein thrombosis. So human estrogen, we produce 3 different estrogens, estriol, estrione and estradiol. And one of the American forms of HRT, tri-est, contains the 3 natural forms in a ratio equivalent to that in the human body, along with some natural progesterone from wild yam. I don't know whether we can get that here, but I'll try and find a research trial on that. And obviously you could go to your doctor and ask for a female hormone profile. So they're looking at progesterone, estrogen, and you can do a saliva or a blood test, and your doctor can look what level your FSH is to see how near menopause you might be. The GP can do various tests, so they can do gut flora, they can do liver function tests, thyroid function tests, the lactose intolerance test, and gluten sensitivity. More and more people in their 50s and 60s are becoming gluten intolerant or having a problem with celiac disease. They can also, you can do a hair mineral analysis or a sweat test and, check for low vitamin or low mineral levels, and if you've got any high heavy metals. I've had 3 women in the last month with high mercury and 2 with high cadmium. So medical treatments I think we've gone through, haven't we? And that was one of my patients, was a cartoonist, and she said that's how she felt after a hysterectomy. So human capital. To practice medicine well, we've got to be aware of the whole person. The medical costs, the physical costs, psychological costs. You know, if you're tired and woebegone, you can't be bubbly and bright with your family and friends. There's costs of pharmaceuticals, costs of working with the doctors, but we always have this do no harm. And some of the painkillers, like NSAIDs, can upset the digestive tract, especially if you're trying to get nutrients into you. You don't need them if there are other alternatives. So diet, what do we need to eat? So we know about Weston Price, Francis Pottinger, Robert McCarrison, men of integrity who wanted to know how the human race could be healthy and did lots of research to look. And they say it's the quality of the food eaten which confers good health on the recipient, not poor quality, cheap, mass-produced food which may be deficient in nutrients. What they're talking about is the food that's been grown on rich soils and farmed in ways where there are nutrients in it. So healthy food is seen to emanate from healthy soil and good farming principles, and they also recognised that we're all biochemically unique. We don't fit protocols and everything all the time, and that we need to check each person's needs for RDAs of vitamins and minerals. So in Paleolithic times we had a very different diet. Since then we've reduced our intake of omega-3 fatty acids from fish. We've got intensive livestock farming and nutrition deficiencies, and they have infections, so often antibiotics are given, and antibiotics fatten up the animals, make them put weight on. The farming, we've got soil demineralisation, overuse of pesticides. I always remember at the ION conference, Craig Sands saying that he grew up in Nebraska and they had 8 metres of topsoil. This was in the 50s. They've now got 18 inches of topsoil. Because of the modern farming and no hedgerows, the soil washes away in rainstorms. We've got agrochemicals and environmental pollutants which are finding their way into the food chain and reduced nutrient content. And people are eating, far less variety than ever. We say we've got a healthy diet, but not everybody has. Some people are living on very meagre supplies. There was this girl in Dublin a few years ago who was on crisps, chips, pizza, pasta, Coke, chocolate, coffee, and had full-blown scurvy. So hunter-gatherer diets, Peking man cooked food 500,000 years ago. An early man, actually, Gordon Hillman, who works with Ray Mears on the wild food programs, when he investigates the stomach contents, we were eating 3,000 different vegetables and fruits. How many do people have now? Apple, banana, handful of grapes. So, insects, I don't know if I could do that, some chocolate, crustaceans, and rarely cereals because they weren't farming grains. We had sea kale, bulrush flour, silver leaf root vegetables, boiled, roasted, legumes, pistachio, pomegranates, acorn flour we had, wild rye, capers, we had broad bean flour, plantains, cresses, pig and deer, and wild cereals in small amounts. And 11,000 years ago there was a Younger Dryas glacial period, and the foods disappeared down to 8 to 150 seeds in some areas, and goat, sheep, and there was a lower antioxidant intake. So if we compare comparison of foods from 1939 to 1991, in calcium, old raw carrots, you've got 48% less calcium. Celery, 21% less. Cheddar cheese, 11% less. But Kellogg's cornflakes have got 114%. And magnesium, carrots, down 75%. 50% less magnesium in celery, 32% in potatoes. So the nutrient content of food appears to be changing. And I always find this alarming. 1936 American Senate warning. The alarming fact is that foods, fruits, vegetables and grains now being raised on millions of acres of land that no longer contain enough of certain minerals are starving us, no matter how much of them we eat. No man of today can eat enough fruits and vegetables to supply his system with the minerals he requires for perfect health. So the more richer diet you have, the better, to make sure you're getting in the nutrients. Then, of course, we've got chemicals. We've got antibiotics, growth hormones in some meat, arsenic injected into chicken breast to plump it up, chlorine and aluminium in the water supply, hormones, solvents and pharmaceutical drugs in tap water. In the Marina Trench off Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, 5 miles deep, they're finding estrogen from the pill and HRT and Prozac. So the fish is swimming around very happy. But it's everywhere in food, in water, which our ancestors did not have. And of course there's food additives in food. Some of them are good, some of them we don't know, and some of them in a cocktail we really don't know. Pesticides which are estrogenic, too many refined sugars. In 1907 people would eat about 7 pounds of sugar a year. A few years ago it was 120 pounds of sugar a year. So we need to reduce it. Artificial sweeteners, xenoestrogens, phthalates, plastic softeners, street drugs, pharmaceutical drugs, trans fats. So all these estrogens that are swirling around. I'm trying to see the clock on the wall. What time is it? Nearly there. So the pesticides, we've got research showing they lead to depression, headaches, poor memories, allergy, immune problems. So you have to be careful. The legal requirement is a safe 3-week period between spraying and picking. But when we were at a friend's 80th birthday party, I sat next to a farmer and he'd wandered round his farm and his neighbouring farm were growing cabbages and cauliflowers and they were spraying them, and he said to the farmer, "How long do you have to wait?" And he said 3 weeks. 4 days later he was walking that same part of his farm again and they were picking them. And he said, well, the supermarket rang up and wanted them now. So we don't really know. So we've got this hubble bubble boil and trouble. Phthalates in the plastics, they're chemical cousins to estrogen. So, they're in some of the soft plastics. Dioxins build up in body fat cells and they inactivate choline-containing enzymes and prevent the uptake of the body of manganese, which upsets estrogen degradation and the formation of oxytocin. So, pesticides in excess are not a good idea. They're in fatty foods, so you need to cut down full cream milk and high-fat foods like butter, cheese and meats. Reduce processed foods in case there's hidden fat. Fish, as a nutritionist we don't know what to say. Deep sea fish is probably the safest. Peel your vegetables so that you've removed any pesticides, or buy organic. If you diet, you've got to do it gradually because otherwise you can release dioxins from your fat cells too quickly. So if you're cleansing, you've got to do it sensibly and gently, not go on a sudden diet and try and lose too much. So plenty of green leafy veg. If you skip a meal, fasting for 1 day alone can change the suppression of luteinizing hormone, so that if you're trying to lose weight, it can affect the whole pituitary endocrine system. Woody Allen, I was nauseous and tingly all over. I was either in love or I had food poisoning. So we've got to check gastric disorders. 69% of the population had one gastric disorder over the past 3 months. And the costs are phenomenal. 25.6 million. Constipation, 4 million Americans spending $725 million a year on laxatives. So we've got to have this healthy gut membrane with all these little villi in to absorb as many nutrients. In celiac disease, that's worn smooth. And the villi absorb the nutrients into the bloodstream. So we've got to have healthy digestion. 2 to 4 pounds of healthy gut bacteria live in your intestine, like 2 bags of sugar. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. They produce B vitamins and vitamin K for us, and we give them warmth and hospitality. So it's 400 to 500 different species. It's the same metabolic action as your whole liver, and they provide a protective atmosphere. And oral contraceptives, antibiotics, HRTs, steroids, and non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, and stress, and they've shown loud noise, like discos, can upset your gut flora. So trying to be healthy. Archibald Garrett, one man's meat is another man's poison. So if you've got a food that you think upsets you, if you eat something and every time you get burping or heartburn or abdominal bloating, perhaps you should cut that food out of your diet for 1 month and replace it with something else. And then, if you improve, perhaps that food doesn't suit you. You can have tests for gluten sensitivity, you can have tests for lactose intolerance, you can have tests to see if you react to nickel, because if you're using stainless steel saucepans, there's nickel in stainless steel. Perhaps you should use enamel saucepans or Pyrex. And we don't want to turn out like a bubbly fish. 18 million people in the UK have an allergy. Asthma's doubled to 5.2 million. Eczema 6 million. 1 in 12 adults and 1 in 8 children are suffering from an allergy. And food intolerance, they think there are about 2 million people. And 1 in 50 people carry an EpiPen, ready to stick it in their thigh and inject adrenaline if they eat anything that closes their airways. I mean, at school, I don't remember, I think there was 1 person in my class had asthma. And 1 person in the school had epilepsy. So Mark Twain's idea was that part of the secret of success in life is to eat what you like and let the food fight it out inside. Sounds painful to me. So you've got the allergies: cow's milk, wheat, gluten, yeast, egg white, cashew, egg yolk, garlic, soybeans, Brazil nuts, almonds, corn, hazel, oats, and so it goes on. So you may find that something's upsetting you, and if you miss that out of your diet, but replace it with something similar that's nutrient rich, you'll feel better. And we've got standard British fare here, and the immune system splits into 4. There's 4 quarters, it all meets here. So that if there's an infection in one area of the lymph, it can shut itself off from the rest of the body. And I'll put this up on the website. It goes through red blood cells and which nutrients they need. White blood cells need vitamin C, E and zinc. Macrophages, B6, selenium and iron. Interferon needs, I don't know where it is, manganese and choline. So it goes through what you need. Complement needs calcium, magnesium. So if only Snow White had had writing on her apple, food labelling, she would never have passed out. Allergies to pips, nuts and seeds. Some people can't eat green apples, and that can be a phenol triggering an allergic reaction. Some people have an allergy to all nuts and seeds, and that would include coffee and chocolate. An IgE allergy, that is the wrong word I've typed in. IgE is an intolerance. IgE is an allergy, a true allergy. I'm sorry, I've put the wrong word in there. So an IgE is an intolerance, but an IgE is a true allergy, and you can have anaphylactic shock and die. Even just kissing somebody who's eaten a peanut. And peanut allergies in 1 in 70 children. FORs cause damage to cell membranes and DNA, so you need nutrients like copper, zinc, manganese to help superoxide dismutase. Glutathione peroxidase needs selenium and riboflavin, and catalase needs iron. So we can see that all these nutrients are crucial. So we want to ditch all the wheat in the day, and try and have fruit smoothies, salmon salad, corn tacos, flapjacks, chicken, vegetable, fruit salads, herb teas, nuts and seeds. The more variety of food you eat, the more nutrients. So enjoy green leafy veg, legumes, peas, beans, lentils, red coloured veg, roots and tubers, raw fresh fruits in moderation, berries, white and oily, deep sea fish, organic lean meat. Vary your dairy, very poetic. Have some goat, sheep and buffalo dairy. Maybe a little soy, rice, oat or almond milk. Vary your carbs. If you want to try a month off wheat, you can try rye, barley, oats. If you don't want gluten, rice, corn, buckwheat, which is rhubarb family. Excuse me, quinoa, tapioca, millet, arrowroot, and snack on nuts and seeds, poppadoms, make your own healthy flapjacks. So foods to reduce or avoid would be chocolate, sweets, candies and ice cream. I can remember when I was teaching and lecturing, some children would have 8 Mars bars for their meals in a day. So wheat, bread, cakes, cookies, pasta, bovine, dairy, you need to vary. You see, hunter-gatherers ate a lot of things. They didn't have the same thing 10 times a day. They had lots of different plants. Coffee, alcohol, fizzy drinks, aspartame, red meat. Try and have organic only, pasture-fed, something that's nibbled real grass. Hidden trans fats, and you can try a month's exclusion diet. So what should we be doing? Breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, dinner like a pauper. You've been fasting for several hours overnight, so you need a good breakfast. And we've all flipped it the other way. We have a big heavy meal and then go to bed. So we need to try and have perhaps a healthier lunch. We can't do this because our lifestyles are all up the creek. But perhaps having a lunch like a prince and breakfast like a prince, and a little lighter high tea than a big dinner in the evening. 3 regular unhurried meals, 2 snacks a day, shopping frequently for fruit and vegetables, a daylight walk so that you absorb zinc. You need 20 minutes of natural daylight in order for the retina of the eye to send the right message to the pituitary to absorb enough zinc to send the right message to the ovary. So if you're in a broom cupboard under a fluorescent light, you need to go round the block at lunchtime. Extra virgin olive oil, preferably the greenest one you can find. Drinking plenty of fresh filtered or mineral water, filter your own, and as near to natural as you can, like hunter-gatherers, the more the merrier. Clearly fats and oils are crucial, so vegetable, nut and seed oils are linoleic acid. They need zinc, B6, biotin, magnesium, vitamin C and calcium to metabolize them to prostaglandin series 1, which reduces inflammation in the body. And again with fish oils, walnut, linseed and hemp oil, that's alpha-linolenic acid, which metabolizes to prostaglandin 3, which is also anti-inflammatory and reduces blood clotting. And in the middle we've got meat and dairy, which is arachidonic acid, which the body can also make itself, which produces prostaglandin series 2, which triggers inflammation. So you need less of those and more of the vegetables and the fish to put an anti-inflammatory stance on the body. And there's research with Danish women with higher levels of omega-3 fatty acids associated to reducing menstrual pain. So women should reduce saturated and trans fats by half when estrogen levels are lower. So, and the estrogenic herbs, I am not a herbalist, I am a nutritionist, but the herbs that they put in the list is black cohosh, dong quai, licorice, unicorn root, fennel, false unicorn root and red clover, which you may need help with from a herbalist, but they would help to bolster estrogen levels to help your bone and cardiovascular system after you've gone into menopause. But certainly you wouldn't want those if you were with endometriosis, where your estrogen's too high. I don't know whether I need to do that. Cruciferous vegetables, they bind to stronger estrogens, and sex hormone binding globulin controls estrogen and testosterone in the gut. So vegetarians have greater fecal excretion of estrogens. I don't think that's a repeat. I don't want to, what time are we now?
20.
Yeah, so I need to just finish off. I've done all the different vitamins. I think the most crucial one really is your essential fatty acids, the fish oil, evening primrose, nut and seed oils. They stop the blood cells being sticky, they remove fluid from the body, improve nerve function and help immune cells clear up debris. And the cofactors are B6, iron and selenium. So I'm going to fly down the rest. I think I've said that before. And go to the end. I've done a bit on fibroids. There are 3 sorts of fibroids. Type O, the entire myometrium, which is inside the uterine cavity, like a stalk, like a chandelier. You've got type 1, where the myoma is partially within the muscle wall, but the largest diameter is within the uterus, and then the one where it's more on the outside of the uterus. And they're thick, colour deep pink, red due to blood pigment, large, thick, muscular walls, and they can calcify. If the body doesn't like something, it builds calcium walls around it. So I'm going to miss all that out because we need to finish. Oops. So nutrients, we've said vitamin E to reduce fibroid size. Iron can be low. This is in perimenopause. If you're having heavy blood loss, avoid tea as tannin in tea binds to iron. Avoid wheat and soy as phytic acid also binds to iron. And B vitamins as suggested by Dr. Carter and Fredericks and Professor Guy Abrahams at UCL. So low saturated fats using the cis omega-3, 6 and 9. I think I've said all that. So I'll go right to the end and I'll finish off. Albert Einstein, the important thing is never stop questioning. And I like this one. I felt like this one. The barium meal is definitely better than the cauliflower cheese. And laughter is the best medicine. There was a wonderful chap in California and he was diagnosed with terminal cancer. So he was very wealthy, so he left his company in charge of somebody and he went off for his last 3 months and he bought every video that he could find that made you laugh. And at the end of 3 months the cancer tumour had gone. So, and we have to be quiet and listen to the patient because she's trying to tell us what is wrong with her. And I always like to end with my medical ethics. A morally good clinical decision should attend to all 3 senses of patient good and satisfy satisfactorily resolve the conflicts among them. So it requires competent discussion with the patient. It's called informed choice. So there's a biomedical good, the medical intervention modifying any disease with the craftsmanship of the physician. The sense of good as the patient's own concept for his or her own good, which takes into consideration what the patient feels is worthwhile and in their best interest. And then there's the good most proper to being human. This is the capacity to make choices and to set up a life plan. It respects patient dignity and expresses human freedom. This is Pellegrino in 1993, and I've never seen anything that beats that. So, I use clinical audits with all my patients so I can track changes. And I have a book which they've put out here, Endometriosis, a Key to Healing and Fertility Through Nutrition, which has chapters on everything: diet, immune system, digestion, one way. So, with that I will finish and hope you've enjoyed that, and we'll see what questions we have to come. So thank you all for coming, and thank you to the Nutri-Centre for having us here. So I don't know whether we need to turn the camera off now. Is anybody here? Do you want to come and turn the camera off? Yeah. Thank you. Are there any questions?
If someone is it amenorrhea, I cannot say.
Amenorrhea, they're having no period at all.
Lifetime.
Yes.
This person, she's 53 years old.
Yes.
When I met her, she was sweating.
Yes.
Is it was she having menopausal symptoms?
Could well be. She needs to go to her doctor and have a female hormone profile.
She already done when she was young, you know,
yes.
and she's,
yes.
yeah. I just want to know exactly,
It might well be, it could well be. But amenorrhea, you see, a teenage girl's period starts